Stiff diff bushings.
Yeah. Today we are going to be getting rid of the slop from Genesis rear diff.
To get access to the diff mounts, you first have to remove the exhaust system from the cat's back. Having access to a lift makes this job very easy. Next, you need to disconnect the rear sway bar end links and then remove the sway bar completely. Once the differential is supported, you can then remove all 3 bolts and lower down the carrier, giving us room to work with the old bushings.
I just wanted to share my method for removing the OEM bushings. It's worked pretty well for me. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it. Some people like blow them out with fire, and some people
This is how it looks OEM.
air hammer. Yeah, that's the OEM bushing
from the factory.
We haven't done anything yet. No, but basically what I do is I'll use like a few different methods, like drill bits and like cutters and chisels and all this other stuff to get the center section out of the bushing. And once you do that, you can get a Sawzall in here and just make a couple cuts. You just make a couple cuts all the way through. You have to be careful because you don't want to damage the part where your new bushing's going. So once you just make that cut, the whole thing kind of compresses and it just slides right out. Yeah. So you don't have to use a lot of brute force. It's just a couple careful cuts and some a little hammer and chisel.
Like Matchew said, be careful not to nick this part.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to go at it to screw this up. But.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a lot less dangerous doing it this way, because if you're using like a hammer and brute force to get this thing out, you're gonna mess this thing up way worse than if you were to just kind of make one or two precise cuts and then just tap it out.
More prone to get some bloody knuckles doing it the other way too.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what's worked for me. That's what I recommend.
There's some in the front here too.
Yep. So this kit has a polyurethane instead of the OEM rubber. It also, from the factory, Hyundai never used this fourth mount. KDM, yo. Yeah, so there's literally threads in the diff, and there's a hole, and it's kind of stamped for another mount, but they never used it. So this kit that I have, it adds a 4th mount, and they're all polyurethane. So should be nice and tight.
Do they use it in any other models?
No, they don't.
No?
They must have originally had it that way and didn't like how much NVH there was.
They got soft.
Yeah. But honestly, I would rather have a little bit more NVH than a sloppy diff.
Oh, I'm all about that NVH life.
Yep. Oh yeah, you and your 6-puck on front clutch and your daily driver.
Solid bushings everywhere.
Once the old bushings are removed, install the front ones with the flange side facing the differential mounts. The rear driver's side mount is split into 2 pieces. Follow the instructions for the orientation and install the metal sleeves after the bushings are in place. Brown and I came up with this synchronized hammering trick to make it happen.
You're in? I'm in. Oh yes. Oh my. Synchronized hammer.
What's up?
The passenger side mount hole needs to be opened up. We measured 1 1/8 inches for the new bushing. Step bits are by far the best tool for this job.
Oh, you see? That's professional.
That's the way it should be.
Make sure that you carefully read the instructions. There are washers with different thicknesses and may be different depending on the year of your car. In my case, the thicker washers go on the rear passenger side to fill the gap to the mounting point on the carrier.
Alright, go up. I'll just guide this side. Alright. We too low?
We too low. Holy fook. Getting the differential raised back up into its mounting point is a tight fit.
It's tight.
Yeah, it's
Make sure you keep an eye on all the mounting points and have the bolts ready to start threading by hand. We used a combination of pry bars and Jeremy Clarkson's favorite tool to get it lined up.
There it is. Imagine doing this on your back. Oh my god. Fuck. We are like in.
Yeah, my side's almost lined over here. Goes in from the back.
Yeah.
I'm in the hole.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, I am too, I think.
Should start turning out. Alright, I'm in.
I think I am too. Alright, let's do all these by hand.
Yeah. Make sure you're not cross-threading anything.
Once you get the bolts hand tight and you know nothing's cross-threaded, you then torque them down to 70 foot-pounds. Before you finish installing your exhaust system, make sure you start it up without a muffler to hear that sweet, sweet rice. Diff bushings. I am generally very pleased with how it turned out. There is still a little bit of wheel hop that I get on occasion, but for the most part, it's much better controlled. And the only real downside is that there is a slight bit of whine from the differential, a little bit more NVH than what came from the car from the factory. It's basically just a little whine when you're at really light throttle. When you go from off throttle to light throttle, I don't know if you can hear it. Just a little whine. It was starting to bug me a little bit on the highway, so I actually took out the back of the interior, and I put in some sound deadening underneath the rear seats and underneath everything in the trunk. Do a little shot of what I did. I'll show that now. And that definitely helped quite a bit. I still do hear the whine a little bit, but it's much better than before I put all that sound deadening in. I've never done a project like that before, so it was really cool to see the difference that it made. The car feels like much quieter in here after that sound deadening. But for the most part, very happy with how the rear diff bushings came out. The car feels much more planted, a lot less wheel hop than I used to get when I was at that verge of like having no traction and having just a little bit of traction. Like when you go from that transition, it would get a lot of wheel hop, but not nearly as much anymore. I still think there's a couple other things I want to do to improve the driveline in this car, which is honestly like the biggest issue I've had with this car has been like the sloppiness of the driveline. in the shifter itself. I do have a couple plans that I want to do to try and remedy that and make this thing perfect. There is Cooler Works makes a shifter for this car that's like billet aluminum, has a reverse lockout that's a pull. You actually have to pull up on a lever instead of having to just go over to between first and second gear to the left, which is honestly what causes a lot of issues when you're really getting on it from first to second. So I think I might do that shifter, and also there's a company 3.8 Performance that does some subframe reinforcement inserts, which I've heard a lot of good things about. I've read a lot of stuff about them. I might try those out as well, and then hopefully the driveline will be perfect finally. But yeah, definitely very happy with the install. Definitely a worthwhile thing. I think that little bit of NVH is just fine to sacrifice to have a stiffer driveline. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, guys.